Hey everybody, welcome to the Dad Challenge podcast. My name is Josh. Thank you for joining me today on Saturday, and I am back on my channel. I don't know for how long, but I'm going to take advantage of it while I am here. I have spoken to some people really close to me that I trust, and you know, I definitely want to continue to fight, and so everything still stands where I'm standing, is that this channel becomes the more informational channel, less about snark and, you know, commenting on people, and more about the story itself and how we're going to continue forward. I'm going to obviously continue on with the things I talk about when it comes to the church and all those kinds of things, kind of as per usual, except for the snark. If you want the snark, I'll still deliver the snark. Just have to head over to Rumble or my other channel called the Dad Challenge channel on YouTube. And it is now monetized, and that's great. And I appreciate you guys watching my stuff and coming to see me. And, you know, for those of you who I might have alienated, I'm sad that I alienated you, but it was never my intention. And I hope that you find a great place to belong on YouTube, that you are over there enjoying your time there and whatever makes you happy. So I hope that message gets to you. Anyway, let's get right to today, because today's interview is amazing. I can't talk a lot because we say everything on this interview. And this one's for, who's this one for? Let's find somebody. Gotta find somebody to throw the ball for. Man, I gave away like 4 shirts yesterday, hoodies and stuff, and spent a lot of money. All right, this one goes out to Dark Rubber Ducky. Called me out in my comment section. I felt personally attacked and said Josh is missing those shots more than Katie Sorensen when she reached for that clout. Just because of the snark comment, you get one of these. Dark Rubber Ducky, it's for a t-shirt. Oh, it was close. Let's do it. So, not going to talk very long. Dr. Kirk is coming on. We're talking today about consent and family vlogging and the possible ramifications of being a family vlogger, what that can mean. This guy is smart. Okay, Dr. Kirk has a very popular podcast called Psychology in Seattle. He's got a YouTube channel with over 200,000 subscribers. Not that means anything, but he's very educated as well. The guy doesn't ever make any he doesn't just say things willy-nilly. And you hear how he talks. He considers everything. And he's fair and balanced about his views. But when I started talking about the family vlogging stuff, just watch him. This guy doesn't really watch those things because he's obviously busy. He's got to practice. He's a therapist, and he does lots of things. He's very, very well educated on the specific topic of the things that we talk about. He's not just making things up. So please make sure you watch that. And understand, when you're putting your kids online, to a degree, that you just have to understand that no child can give informed consent. None whatsoever. It's just not possible. He said there are exceptions, and I don't want to give too much away, but anyway. Go watch the interview. Dr. Kirk is a sexy psychologist. I'm going to call him that from now on. Let's go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Dad Challenge podcast. My name is Josh, and I have my favorite, one of the most sexy psychiatrists in the world, or psychologist. Psychologist, right?
Well, I'm a therapist. You can call me doctoral level therapist, yeah.
Awesome. Well, whatever, he's hot. So he's got an amazing podcast, a YouTube channel where they talk about amazing things. We've had him on the show multiple times about many different topics, and I always go to him for anything that requires thinking, because I'm dumb and he's really smart. So, Dr. Kirk, thank you for coming on the show again. Obviously, it's always a pleasure to have you, and nice shirt.
Oh, thanks.
It looks really good.
Well, it's getting cold out, so you got to have some flannel on.
That's right. You're pretty north, right? You don't get a ton of snow, though, where you are.
Not as much as you. No, that's for sure.
It's insane here. So let's get right to it, because I don't want to have super, super long video, but there's a lot of things happening on my channel right now that have been exploding, and people are calling me out and all this stuff. And in order to avoid all the drama, I need to get to the root of some things that I'm saying on my channel. And I think that you would be a professional enough or smart enough to understand and give me the right answers. And not the answers I might be searching for, but the right answers, because you're very well thought out. The way that you disseminate your opinion and your professional opinion as well is really good, and I think it's super valuable for this platform. So, that being said, you know what we're talking about today. We're talking about family vloggers, and not necessarily against them or anything like that. We're actually going to start diving into this idea of, can kids consent, right? And so my first question is, can kids consent?
No, it's obvious that they cannot consent, particularly younger kids. You could make an argument that an older teenager could consent, a 16-year-old maybe. But there's a reason why we have laws about child labor. There's a reason why we have laws about child actors. And the way that the current landscape of reality television and of YouTube works is they are exempt from those protections. And I think common sense says they should be protected by those laws.
Yeah, and that's kind of what my fight has taken a turn to. You know, I used to be a jerk and an asshole and all this stuff, but just calling out people's fakery, which I think is also important to show people to stop, you know, comparing yourself to these moms and dads who are fake and they're giving you all the fakeness. But again, I want to stay away from that today and really, really focus in on this idea that these kids can't consent. Now, what's the idea? I've heard this word informed consent. What are the different types of consent? Or are there different types of consent that we should take into consideration here?
Well, usually when we're using the word informed, we're emphasizing that the consent is given with the person who's giving consent having been properly informed.
Okay.
So if you just walk up to a 7-year-old and say, hey, would you like to be on YouTube today? And they're like, yeah. Well, I think most of us understand that that isn't necessarily informed consent. What informed consent would be you'd sit down with a 7-year-old and you'd say, look, here are the 15 horrible things that could happen to you and your development, your future life, all these other things. And then they could provide consent. Having said that, I don't know any 7-year-old who would be able to comprehend the consequences of going on YouTube or being on a reality TV show.
Yeah, and I'm sure we could find child psychologists to come on and back up exactly what you're saying right there. And you are educated in this field. Well, I'm not going to say anybody's names on this channel because it's not about that. It's not about throwing shade or anything like that, but this is a true conversation about this. But there is a family out there or two that I've heard in Instagram, and they've made these comments, and I have screenshots of them saying it, that I have my child's consent. And this child, this one in question, is a teenager. Now, we'll go back to, because we all know that kids can't consent, and obviously they would never be able to understand the ramifications. But let's take a 16-year-old, for example. Why do you think that they can't truly have informed consent either?
Well, so there's a gray zone there. I don't know what the age cutoff should be, but it stands to reason that there's some kind of transition period there. We could imagine a 22-year-old who might not have the developmental capacity to understand consent. We could imagine a 13-year-old who absolutely understands what they're getting into. So usually with the law, we have to just put some kind of date, like you can't smoke until you're this age, this kind of thing, and it doesn't really apply to every human being. That's just how the law works. So could a 16-year-old consent? Yeah, I could see that, but I think a lot of things need to be taken into consideration. The pressures that the parents are putting on the kid, the access the kid has to the benefits, because sometimes the parents take all the money and the kids end up trying to sue the parents. We've seen this in child acting in movies and television, Macaulay Culkin, like all these famous stories of children who would absolutely stand up and say, yeah, I'm consenting to this. I love this lifestyle. I want to do this. And then years later, they look back and say, I was not really consenting to it.
Yeah. And I think that's part of, a lot of people make the argument of like, well, if you ingest, films with child stars in them and watch, Netflix and all this stuff with kids, my argument is that these kids are acting, they go home to a different life, whether or not that's good or bad, but they don't have a camera shoved in their face 24 hours a day. And again, I say that loosely, they're not 24 hours a day, but these kids have no protections in place. So I agree with you that yes, there are smart kids who can consent, and there's obviously like brilliant kids out there who understand and can cognitively understand the future if they're given the proper information. My argument's going to be that none of these families are going to give their kids the actual true, hey, just so you're aware, when I put this video about you having your period for the first time, 10 years down the road, when you get to high school or whatever, when you get to college, this stuff is online forever. Like the parents don't really care as far as I'm concerned. And I know it's a statement, but if they did care, they wouldn't put these types of things out, which kind of segues into the topic idea. So yeah, they can't consent and we can talk about that. But when it comes to the types of content these parents are putting out, and they say that the kids consent for whatever reason, quote unquote, like I know they do, but from your perspective, what kind of ramifications will these kids have for this type of content? And I'll give you a couple ideas. The period kit shopping. There's a couple of videos that there now, a bunch of parents are pranking the other parent. The dad comes in the room and the 7-year-old girl's faking having her period, and it's for a joke. It's a prank, right? And then there's videos about bra shopping. The Wife's Life is one of the families that I cover a lot about how she was showing how to size her daughter on camera, took them to the mall and shopping. Just these types of content. We'll talk about the predator situation in a minute, but just this type of content, these really personal things like shaving your legs, acne, arguing, blow-ups, temper tantrums, all this stuff. What are the ramifications that I know, but I want to hear it from a professional? What do you think could happen in their future?
So we don't have the data. I tried to look up, and I have for a long time now, the data on research regarding this. We would look scientifically at kids who aren't exposed to this kind of work, so to speak, and then kids that are, and we would try to compare those two and look at outcomes. We'd look at drug addiction, school dropout, crime rates, depression rates, anxiety rates, these kinds of things. The data just isn't there. There's a lot of speculation on the internet, even among clinicians. And so I'll just say, as a scientist, I just don't know. And maybe the research is out there and I couldn't find it, but I think it is a fairly new area, given that YouTube and everything is really bringing this up. And it usually takes a good 20 years for my field to catch up and get it and gather the data and gather a consensus about what happens. So we just don't know. But it stands to reason. And there's certainly anecdotes of kids who were child actors, Drew Barrymore, these other kinds of people, that we could absolutely say, well, we know in the acting world there were problems, which absolutely will likely crop up. I'm quite positive in 20 years we're going to have adults who say they were essentially being abused by their parents on YouTube. So anecdotes for sure. But what's the risk? Is it like a 5% risk or is it a 50% risk? And what are the common problems? Because lots of kids suffer from anxiety and depression regardless of YouTube or not. So it's hard to tease out those differences. But the potential consequences are pretty obvious, which is lack of privacy. For me, and I don't know about you, Josh, but I'd be mortified if my 13-year-old life was on YouTube permanently. I was insecure. I didn't know who I was. I was snotty. My parents had a video camera in the early 80s and would film me occasionally, and I cringe watching that. And I'm the only one who even has a copy of this, and I can't imagine having that out there. So the shame involved, and then also the development of your personality. It's hard enough to develop as a child anyway, but to have this constant barrage of criticism and shame, body shame, the way you look, the things you say, and then accolades from strangers about who you are. And I'm guessing a lot of female children are being sexualized, which probably isn't helpful to their development as well. So, the consequences are pretty obvious to any parent or anyone who cares about humans. It's just unclear as to what the percentage risk is, because there's plenty of people who already have had experiences like this. They've been on reality TV, they've been on YouTube, and they're older now, and they look back, and there's plenty of people that say, this jump-started my career. And although there were some things I didn't like, there were a lot of benefits. It was actually really fun, or it brought me and my family together, or who knows. But it's just hard to know what the risk is. But I think all of us can agree that there is a risk and there needs to be protections.
Right. And so and for me, in the end, it's about like, you're putting all these private things on your internet. The Wife's Life specifically, I spoke to, I released a video I had to remove and apologize, but there was some stuff that was told that this girl has asked her mother to remove those videos, those problematic ones, not necessarily the ones where they go to Disneyland or, you know, go to Target and do the hauls, but the true ones about the periods and all that stuff. And I did some digging into the analytics. I don't know if you've been watching that, but the analytics that I found are from a site called Social Book. And Social Book has stood on their platform and told me that they are the most accurate analytics as far as engagement's concerned. Not the analytics you and I can find behind our scenes on YouTube, but their engagement analytics. And the one that you mentioned, sexualizing young girls. Everly LeBrand is one of the biggest ones on Instagram. She's 7 years old. She has 5.1 million subscribers or followers on Instagram. And her engagement rate for males is 70%. And I think, was it 60% of that 70% were over the age of 25. And so the one thing I'm fighting for, upset about, whatever you want to call it, is that why do we have to, like, in that group of, let's say, I think it was 3.1 million men watching, based on any clinical data, anything you might have, is it possible that a sect of those people are predators?
Yeah, well, there's a percentage of people watching us right now that are predators. So it's just a statistical likelihood. But it stands to reason that if you are a predator, then a channel like this would be attractive to you for sure. It seems pretty obvious. Now, would we say that a majority of those men over 25 are predators? I'm guessing not. I mean, they could be legitimately just interested in watching. I don't know what the channel is about.
Well, she's a young girl who dances provocatively. Her content's not innocent. That's the thing. That's what scares me. The content, she's in bathing suits. She does dance moves. She does the splits. It's inappropriate, is what I'm saying. So that's why I'm saying, like, if it was innocent, maybe she's unboxing toys or whatever it is, I could even have said, yeah, maybe. But it's all about this little girl and dancing and provocative. It's not innocent. And again, you can look at it yourself, but it's not. And so I'm not saying, yes, the majority of people would be predators, but it's concerning. And my fight is why do we have to wait sometimes until the bad thing happens before we make the changes?
Yeah, that's a problem with us humans. We have a hard time reacting. We have a hard time noticing. I would suspect, this is just speculation, that legislatures in North America they kind of consider the internet, you know, they're older, they're out of touch, and they just think of the YouTube and the internet as just sort of like this thing that they don't understand. If you've ever seen Senate hearings, the questions that they ask are absurd. They'll just be like, well, how come my Facebook doesn't work on my phone? You know, and Zuckerberg's like, I don't know, you know, like maybe there's something wrong. I don't, you know, and just the out of touchness of these individuals means that they just don't care or pay attention or understand. But yeah, I mean, that is shocking. I didn't know that channels like that existed where you'd have a 7-year-old who is that someone in the United States? A child in the United States?
Yeah, her name's Eva LeBrand, and she's got 5, and her little sister has one. And so I'll just give you a little synopsis of how this works. Okay, these family vloggers start these channels. They make money off being pregnant. They show their bellies, and there's a lot of fetishized things that they do. They show their feet, they show their bellies, because there's a lot of people who love that. They see the analytic bump, and then they continue on those big things. The child is born. And there's one that just was recently born, and they've made an Instagram for this child already. And some of these children are blue check marked. And if they're not, here's the thing, they're not even following the rules of the Instagram, because these kids have to be 13 to get on Instagram, but they're run by their parents. And all they are is a platform to make more money. So they do advertisement with their kids. In order to make a post on this girl's in question, Evie LeBrand's post, it costs you somewhere up to $30,000 to post on her, to pay her to do an ad sponsorship on her account, which her parents obviously take. But the problem is that the parents know, and the advertisers know the analytics just by, because in order to advertise with these channels, you have to ask them for the analytics. And so they give you the analytics, and the advertisers know who's watching this. And there's no excuse for a 7-year-old girl to be on Instagram to begin with, blue check mark or not, or whatever it is. But there's also no excuse to why 70% of the engagement on that channel is male. Even if it was 10% is still not, that is not who they're targeting. That is not the target, but that's the unintended target, but it's happening. And the parents know it's happening and refuse to do anything about it. And until I started talking about it, and uncovering the analytics, that's when shit started hitting the fan for me. I've been struck twice. All these things, I've been demonetized on YouTube. Because what these family vloggers do is see that I'm starting conversation, and all these other family vloggers are coming out with videos saying, I'm taking my kids off. I didn't know about these predator playlists, which I'll talk to you in a second. And so what they've done is they're collaborating in the back end with their YouTube managers and trying to shut me down, which is fine. I can just go anywhere else. I'm not going to stop this fight. But I think having these types of conversations where we talk about the ramifications of these kids for the future, maybe they'll listen to you because you're a smart man who is educated and you do this for a living. But like when it comes to, I don't want to scare people, but when it comes to predator culture maps, because I can't say the P word, you know that. Have you ever dealt with someone like that? Have you ever dove into psychologically what these people, the sickness that they have? Or have you ever considered that? Have you ever done a topic on that? Because maybe these parents just don't understand who these guys are.
Yeah. So there are some people, for a variety of reasons, who will be motivated and will actually victimize children in a variety of ways. And there's a number of different pathways to that motivation. One is it's just how you're born, for whatever reason, how your sexuality developed. Another is you just have a general desire to harm other human beings, and it doesn't really matter how you do it or who you're doing it to. You just want to hurt animals and other people, and so those people, they'll tend to target children because they're more helpless and they don't know how to report what's happening to them. So I don't know, what percentage it would be for people that would be watching these channels, but yeah, they're out there. And the thing is whenever you have a ton of money, which there is on YouTube and Instagram, the more followers you get, and a lack of regulations, you're going to have exploitation. It always happens. It's been happening since the beginning of capitalism. You have a ton of money, which is power and seductive and just drives motive. You end up convincing yourselves of things. I could see the parents legitimately caring about their children, but just being completely seduced by literally millions of dollars. And they're like, well, it's a slippery slope for them. I don't know. And they just slowly go down the road. It's like, well, it's innocent, yeah, it's a little weird, but it's YouTube and it's fine. Whenever you have that, time and time again, you'll have exploitation of children, exploitation of racial groups, exploitation of, it just goes back throughout history. And we clearly see that in this situation. There's a ton of money and essentially no regulation. There's just no child protections on this sort of thing. And we got to change that. Yeah. And it's a perfect segue into the next topic here is that, okay, so these parents have taken the path down and they said, okay, they've taken this path down and they're going to take the next step. It's almost like being like, you have to justify, because once that big money hits, then it's easy to justify because your lifestyle changes. Oh, well, my kid's going to have a car. I'm going to be able to pay for all the things they want. Our lives are better because of this. We don't have a lot of problems. And they go down and they go down and they go down, and they get to a point where they have no choice but to do the thing. Like, so there's a family there called the Sconajolies from UK. Not necessarily most terrible. They've had some issues in the past with, giving their kid cold showers, a toddler as a punishment, all this stuff. And it's not what we're talking about today, but they've had some problems. And so I've uncovered them. But recently they just had an ad on their Instagram, which probably costs something like $10,000 to $20,000. And it's just her sitting with her kids, her holding Duracell batteries. And now she's a battery aficionado. But in the case of using kids, and I had a vlogger on my channel named Shay Lee who said that advertisers will give you a massive premium if you use your kids in the content because they know that it brings more people, because obviously it does. And the analytics show that. And so when you have to use your kids, right, to make money, even if you're not trying to, does that pressure for those kids, even if, how does that come about? Do they realize it, that they're putting the pressure on their kids? Do the kids actually feel that pressure? How does that manifest? So Again, we just don't have the data, but I absolutely could imagine that happening for sure. I could also see some children being relatively protected from the downside. We all understand that when we're raising children, they have a lot of things they have to go through emotionally, developmentally. They want freedom. They don't deal with pressure very well. They have a hard time regulating their emotions. They want to please, but they also want to do their own thing. And this kind of activity could definitely complicate all that process, where the child feels like they are responsible for the parents' finances. Then that's something that you don't want a child to worry about. That their self-worth is based on how appealing they are to older men. We definitely don't want that. That their self-worth is based on clicks and views and how controversial they are or how interesting they are to the internet. You know, what we want children to focus on, which is the regular things like getting along with other people in person, how to assert yourself, how to listen to others, how to play nicely, how to play fair, how to learn, how to relax, how to cuddle with your parents. You know, these are the things we want kids to be focusing on. And, you know, I could see once the research is done that there are what we call moderating factors or mediating factors where if the parents are pretty good parents and on the side they do a little bit of YouTube on the side, I could see that resulting in good outcomes. Whereas if you are in a family where there's general neglect anyway, which I'm guessing is associated with some of these channels because most parents would not want to do this to their 7-year-old child, no matter how much money was involved. So it could be a tip of the iceberg thing. It's like if the parents are willing to, you know, exploit their children in this way, what else are they neglecting in terms of attuning to the child's needs and caring about the child's development? I'm pretty sure we're going to see in the data that those kinds of channels, even if they didn't go on YouTube, there would have been problems anyway because that activity indicates something. You know what I mean?
You go from even if they didn't go on YouTube? Sorry, I should have silenced that.
Even if they didn't go on YouTube, then I'm guessing we would find that there would be a problem with the parenting that would result in, you know, the sort of outcomes that we see with children who are neglected or abused. I don't know though, but we just have to wait until we see the data. Well, I want to say something in that there are laws that do protect children, obviously, but they're not being utilized or expanded in a way that protects kids in this situation. So it's not that we don't have laws, it's that we're not applying them to these situations. So the solution is either we expand the current laws and use them to regulate this kind of activity. Essentially, we would treat YouTube as a similar situation as being on a movie set, but currently we're not doing that. Same with reality television. Or we create a new law that dictates that. And it does bring up some interesting things because, you have kids, and I'm guessing you've taken videos of your kids at times, and you might post it on Facebook. It's only for your 200 friends on Facebook, but that's in that direction, right? Mm-hmm. Your kid can't give consent if that's our premise. So you take a video of your 7-year-old kid going to school, first day of school, yay, and the kid's running out to school, and you post it on Facebook. Well, where's the line there? I think most of us understand the line, but how do you define that in terms of the law?
Well, I'm defining it, and in terms of law, it'd be definition of, I think that it's a simple thing. I think maybe I'm just being severely simplistic of it, but if your channel makes money, if you do make money based on your children in content, I think that's easy to say, yeah, okay, fine, then no, you can't do that. If there's any money being made. Now, yes, there's going to be loopholes and things like that, and my argument has never been don't put your kids on, although I do say to these family vloggers, try not to put as much on, and I have my kids on, I have my kids being birthed, like I did videos for my children as well, and so I'm a little bit hypocritical when I say this thing, but I've always come down to this, is that when you need children in your content to make money, that should be regulated. Now, if you're just a regular parent putting out a couple videos and all this stuff, you might have to answer for it later, sure. But in the same time, it doesn't have the same ramifications when you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers, making millions of dollars off of your family and getting premiums to use your children. Like, and they say that on purpose, like premiums to use your children. So I think it's an easy way to partition it. And I never want to shame people for putting good memories on the internet. I live far away from my in-laws, so when I post a video, I mean, it's easy to make it private, sure. And you want to show people how cute your kids are, but yeah, I do hear you in that fine line, but I think it's just about, it's got to come down to, do you make money? Do you not make money off of your kids?
Yeah, and the thing that I think is, do we need to have children on YouTube? Do we need to have that content? And I would say, no, we don't need it. So it's to me, if we expand the laws and some people, some content providers are harmed unnecessarily, I would say, well, so what? Like, is that such a big? Now we're reducing our freedoms, which is, I guess, the problem there. But I think all of us can agree that it's worth the benefit of knowing that these children aren't being harmed.
And we say harm, and there's a lot of things that could be harmful. I'm not just saying that their predators are coming after them, but I want to talk to you about that real quick. The one thing I did find, and I'm not sure I'm the only one who found it, I think there are other people who found it, because the girl Emma who came to me, and she found it. But basically what you do is you type in the word, the Ace family or whatever you want to do, or babies in diapers or baby swimming, kids swimming. There are these playlists that get created on YouTube, and you just go under playlists and you find it, and you find a dude, and he's got 4,000 video playlists or whatever it is. And it's a guy that has no other content on his channel. It's preservedly a guy, I don't know if it is, I can't prove it or not, but it's a man's name, no content on his channel. He's got something like 70 subscribers. No content, except when you go to his playlist, then it's all about family vloggers and the kids. It's all about kids in diapers, swimming, period kits, shaving your legs. It's all the videos that are like kind of problematic, not the normal ones like going to Disney or anything. It's always the ones that are like super personal. And so this is a big problem. There's a lot of it going on. And that lady that came on my channel said, I found that and I took my kids off instantly. All of these channels know that this exists because I told them, and they probably knew before that. They don't want to know. And so when they come on the show, or when they come after me for exposing this stuff, it just shows that they're scared to lose their money and they don't care about the predators. But there are people, and before the comments got removed from this, whatever it's called, the Admageddon or whatever they called it, or I don't know what they called it, where advertisers were like, I'm not advertising with kids anymore, because they found that big map ring of people doing timestamps of their kids in compromising positions or in diapers or naked, and they would share those timestamps in their comment section. And so YouTube said, we have to draw the line. We're not allowed to monetize it anymore if you're going to keep your comments open. And so family vloggers got super upset. And then all the maps did was just move on to making playlists. They're always going to find a way. And a lot of these family vloggers will say, and maybe I'm wrong about this in my argument, but they're saying, I can't help who's watching my content. What do you say to that? Like, yeah, we can't. But my argument is that, why would you give it to them? You can't help, but why would you give it to them on a silver platter legally?
Yeah, I mean, as a clinician, I don't know if I have so much of an opinion, because if, for example, you go to the beach and with your kids and a predator is in a van with a long lens looking at your kids, is that the parent's fault for going to the beach? Obviously, YouTube is different, and I'm sure there's a wide variety of, shall we say, neglect that's happening from parents on YouTube. But it does bring up that moral question of, who's to blame for that? Should parents, what are the freedoms? And now, given I don't know the world that you're talking about, but it sounds to me like some YouTubers are seemingly making innocent stuff. And yeah, there's a little shot of their kid in diapers or something, and that's not the point of the video. It just sort of happens, and they're saying, "Hey, it's not my fault that predators are going to watch that." And then you have another group of YouTubers, seemingly according to you, who know, look, I know that I don't know why when I show my kid in diapers, I don't know why my views get shot up, but I'm making money, and let's make this happen, And hey, I can't help who's watching. I think there's probably a difference there. And yeah, I mean, icky. Just wow.
Well, and they know their analytics too. Even if you have a 19% male viewers on those videos, and they can get right down to the analytics of, you have a YouTube channel. You can get right into the analytics of every video you do. So take the Wife's Life, for example. Okay, and I did their analytics on their boosted videos, just basic overall analytics. I looked at their highest level of views, and the one was her daughter getting, one with Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know why I got so many views. Maybe they boosted it. But the second most watched video, 12 million, was her getting her cast off. I'm like, why are people looking at her cast? It's her feet, and it's a teenager. And that foot fetish thing is huge on this platform. Like the feet, but guys, and sorry, I don't want to kink shame anybody, but feet are disgusting. And that's just me. But some people absolutely just go bananas for their foot fetish, and that's why they have that many views. Then there was another one that started trending, which was the oral one, where they're taking out their kids' teeth, right, through a door or with a tennis ball or whatever they're doing to say getting teeth out, right? And I'm like, how do you fetishize teeth? It's their mouth. Right? And so they see that, they hit one, and then 2 weeks later do another one in the same topic. 2 weeks later do another one. Then they do the period kit videos where they go shopping for their first period kit because, oh, hey, welcome to our channel, we're real and raw, my daughter just got her period today, hello, let's make a video about it, right? Then it's like, hey, now she's becoming a woman, we need to size her bra size, and we're going to go bra shopping because we think we need to expose this. And a lot of the argument is that we need to normalize these conversations. We need to normalize breastfeeding and all this stuff. And I'm always like, when is this, or they need to not expose the wrong word, where they want to not normalize it, but the other word is to just put it out there. And I'm like, I'll raise awareness for these things. I'm like, are people not aware of breastfeeding? Are they not aware? But they use this as an excuse. But in the end, they see the analytical bump. The problem was the analytics. They see what happens. They see the big money. And this channel, like The Wife's Life, their big money maker is their teenage daughter. And whenever she comes on the show, boom, huge bump in analytics, huge bump in money and everything. And then they'll just capitalize on that moment, which is like a business. I get it. But in the end, when your business is your kids, because no one's watching the parents, because they're and I know this is going to sound bad. None of these family vloggers, Dr. Kirk, are funny or anything. None of them, I'm looking at their content, I'm like this, except for one, Jess Fam, but she uses her kids, so whatever. She's hilarious. There's one out there that's funny. The rest of them, it's garbage. Their content is literally insane. Maybe you can expose, why do people watch this stuff? I mean, aside from all that stuff, but what makes this shit so interesting? Because it's terrible.
Well, I mean, the speculation that you're making, which sounds like it's very possible that some people are watching it for sexual reasons, so we can add that to the list. But the larger question is, why do people watch reality television at all? I mean, I guess essentially that's what this is. And, there's all sorts of speculations we could make. But I think that, normalization, having a relationship, particularly during the lockdowns, you just want contact with other people. Sometimes we also watch for comparison reasons because we want to make ourselves feel better. We look at them and go like, oh, look how stupid they are, look how dumb they are, look at the dumb choices they're making, and then we feel better about ourselves. So I don't know.
What's this content that I'm talking about here specifically, these family vloggers, if you watch it, and I try not to, but if you do watch it, none of it is about look how bad we are, what we do. It's all about how good and amazing and how the things that they have and the cars and the white walls and the amazing things they buy, the shopping halls, and how incredible their family life is. That it's never about bringing them down, but I think it's detrimental, in the world of influencing, is to compare yourself to these people and always be left wanting. And that's one of my big topics is I talk about stop comparing yourself to this fakery, because it's absolutely false. There's no way, I know you're going to shame me. There's just no way anybody, I have a family, you have a family, people have families. No way a family runs like that. It just doesn't work that way. And so I'm trying to expose that partly too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good message. And I think you're giving a lot of good messages to people. One is about raising awareness around this. One is about not comparing yourself to these people, for sure. And so if the channels are all positive, then I'm guessing that people watch it similar to why they watch Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, if you remember that TV show from the 80s. You just want to see people succeeding. It just feels good. You just feel like maybe that's an aspiration that you can have, or It's just a break from the chaos of your life. You just want to watch someone succeed with their children or something. I don't know.
Living vicariously.
Yeah.
Love Entourage, the idea of like this guy who's an actor just spending millions of dollars. I love, and I totally feel what you're saying. Like, I love the idea of like, this is this weird world where we love the exorbitance of everything, and when someone gets to do it, you don't experience it yourself. So when you see it, it's like looking at something you've never experienced.
Right. So maybe that's what it is. So, yeah, I just wish that, I guess as we're talking, I just wish that there just has to be regulations. You can't ask human beings to not be seduced by money. It's just not, it's never worked in our history. So there just has to be regulations. It sounds like it might be, but even when I think about it, it's like, how do we, until we get the data, maybe this is what I should say, until we get the data, we should be treating kids on YouTube and Instagram the same that we treat kids in movies and television. They literally are part of a union. When there's a child actor on a movie set, they're a part of the Screen Actors Guild. There are regulations. There are all sorts of rules you have to follow in terms of their schooling and their care and how long they can work. Like, you can't make child actors work all day long. They can only work for a short amount of time. It could be argued that needs to be even more stringent, but why in the world would we consider these channels completely, and reality television for that matter, completely separate? The reason why is because we've had child actors for over 100 years on the movie screen and on television, but we haven't had them on the internet very long, or reality television, and so we just haven't caught up. And it seems, it just seems rather obvious to me. Yeah,
that's an amazing point. I mean, if you're going to take anything from this, that's it. Like, and that's what I'm saying. Why we don't wait for something dangerous to happen. Like, if you're going to, I think if you demonetize, my whole solution here is simple. I think right away, until a Coogan law or something can be expanded into YouTube, is that just until you can figure it out, demonetize anything with underage kids of age of consent for their state. Meaning that if your kid is on YouTube and they are not of age to consent in the state that they live in, or wherever they live, YouTube says, sorry, we're just not going to give you money. We're not going to throw advertisements on your channel. If you want to do it through other means by growing your channel, you're not going to get AdSense. That will take half of these people's revenues away, and then leave it up to the rest of the world to vote with their wallet whether or not I want to now go buy a Duracell battery because I don't think I like that you're advertising with this family vlogger who's problematic, right? In the end, you can let people make this movement work by saying, YouTube, you have, and they did that sort of. Then when they took those comment sections away, the family vloggers got mad, big mads. They got super upset, and they still argue today, and some of them will leave their comments up. They get away with it. And so it's on us to make sure that they're being called out because they're getting away with putting the comments on and allowing this stuff to happen. But YouTube just needs to take a hard line stance, and they make millions upon millions upon millions. One of the biggest family channels is the Ace family. They have 19.1 million subscribers. They make something like 20 million just in AdSense a year, which is insane, okay? And you got to imagine that YouTube makes 40% of that on top of what they make. So it's not 20 million, it's like more like 35 million that this family brings in. YouTube takes a huge cut of that, right? And I get it, but YouTube is going to lose money in the end. But at the same time, YouTube will be able to say, we took these kids into consideration first over money, and it made us look good. But unfortunately, corporations tend to not until something like the Dramageddon happens, or whatever it's called, the adpocalypse happens, right? An adpocalypse needs to happen before YouTube takes, because if your bottom line's affected, that's when they're going to make a move. And I can't blame them. They are a business, right? They are an entity of a business, not just one person that says, do this thing. They have shareholders, they have money to make, they are a business. And if I don't like it, I don't have to watch it, true. But at the same time, if they have this problematic thing happening, until something big happens, and I hope it never does, but what's going to take? A kid to get murdered, kidnapped, killed, whatever it is, or to age out of their family, sue YouTube and sue the family before they make anything, right? That's what's going to take.
Right. Yeah. You say that you don't blame the corporations. I do. I don't. We tend to have this attitude sometimes like, well, it's a corporation. They're there to make money. They're run by human beings who mostly have a moral center. And so they should look at themselves and say, like, what are we doing here? And they should make regulate, the cynic in me wonders if they dealt with the comments so that they could say they are doing something, but it doesn't take away any of the ad revenue, and it doesn't take away any of the content. They did something to address the people who were criticizing them, but they didn't really do anything. If you think about it, the content is still out there. The predators are still watching potentially, and the laws haven't changed. And so, yeah, it's sad that we would need laws to regulate human behavior, but it's necessary for sure.
And I'm a Canadian, so I have no skin in the game there. I mean, I can try to do what I can do in Canada, but what would someone, so we're not, before I get to that question, because that's going to be kind of the solution question, but this question here is, what detriment does it have when, and I know this I know this by asking people and hearing it and watching and seeing the stories, but when a camera turns on inside of a household of a family vlogger, okay, specifically Micah and James Stauffer, the main ones I come after for rehoming their adopted kid from China. It's a crazy story. It's insane. But we know that Micah isn't who she says she is because I broke it down. I've interviewed people from her past, from and immediate close to their family. They know her by interviewing people who knew her. Now, when the camera turns on, everybody's happy-go-lucky. The voice changes to "Hi, everybody," and she changes her voice completely. The things that are going on, the eating, the shopping, all the fun stuff comes on. The camera's turned on. When the camera's turned off, it's different, right? And it might not necessarily even be a bad thing, but when the camera's on and the fake happens, is there something to be said for, is that detrimental to a child who's developing? That's what I'm saying. Like it seems like there's two worlds for them.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. Again, it's hard to know. I think it's not uncommon for any parent to have a public-facing persona. I guess it depends on how bad the real persona is, right? If the real persona and the real her is mean and vindictive and uncaring, then it doesn't really matter what fakery you have online. That other life is going to be not good for children, obviously. So, in terms of, but I guess the question is interesting. If you watch your parents when they turn on a camera become these very different people, the very fake people, and you're watching your parents essentially lie through their persona, would that affect you? Yeah, I could see that affecting people for sure.
Another question, or not question, another observation for me is that there's some family vloggers out there, one specifically, I forget the name of the family vlogger, but birthday party, having fun, all that cool stuff, film that stuff, flying a drone around, having fun, hits his kid in the face with the drone, okay, and it's got big giant scratches on his face, and that's an accident. I'm not going to blame, although he did fly it next to his kid's face. It could be, I've done some dumb things with my kids by accident, having fun, but not. And so I'm not going to shade him for that. But at the same time, the initial response for them too was to, okay, turn the camera on. This is content. There's another one where the girl, there's kids, there's a family out there, and I don't want to, her kid passed. Okay. And they made content on it and made lots of money on it. And I don't know, maybe they wanted to do it as a grief process, but when the camera comes on through things like these insane things that happen to these kids, like Kendall Rich from the R Life has a couple of videos where my kid almost got kidnapped, and she's got a picture of the guy behind them, taking pictures of them. She's like, I stopped the kidnapping. She's being targeted, and she's being targeted by more than one person. And she comes on her video, and she reads the text message from the predators and laughs at him and calls him an a-hole and all this stuff. And maybe he deserves it, but she's literally predator baiting. And then there's another one that just came out not 2-3 days ago, crying her eyes out on her Instagram that she was being targeted and her kids almost got taken, and she was freaking out, didn't know what to do. Now, not to say any of that doesn't happen elsewhere, but the problem is with these family vloggers, as soon as something big happens in their life, because they're so mundane, they record it because it's content. Kid goes to the hospital because they broke their arm, or for whatever reason, it's content. They need to record it all because they've run out of shit to talk about. And that, to me, in the end, is where stuff gets really crazy, especially when it comes to medical conditions and things like that in the hospital for heart conditions, or they're going in for even just random surgery. It doesn't matter. The issue is that all that stuff that sometimes you can keep in without telling everybody, they do it because they need that content. They press the record on that button on purpose and they're excited about it. You can feel the energy in those videos. They're like, we just had a predator come into our neighborhood, and the opening video is like this epic music, chasing music, and she's following the predator down the road and all this stuff. And it's like, it's content, and they're excited about it until one day it's going to go overboard because maybe these predators are looking for that, like serial killers often will look for that, what's the word I'm looking for? Like they look for to be famous by doing the thing that's going to get them the most exposure. I'm not saying they will, but in the end, when you're turning a camera on every time there's something, even small to big, that's got to be detrimental to that kid too. That, oh, my parents, the camera's coming out, I'm bleeding here, I'm in pain, and they have a camera on my face. That to me pisses me off a lot.
Right. You're in pain. You need someone to care about you. You need sympathy. You need empathy. You need attention. And you get this impression like, oh, I'm just a tool. I'm just a way for my parents to get more views on YouTube. And I'm not a real human being. I'm an actor in this family. I can't imagine that would feel good. But again, it's just the larger question of consent, that most of us would agree that a child cannot provide informed consent because they don't understand. And if you had a 25-year-old and they broke their leg, for example, well, I'll just say for me, if I had a drone hit me in the face and I had a wound, and my wife, who works with me on the podcast, said, "Oh, this is good content," and started filming, I'd be like, "No, no, no." My wife would never do that, by the way. But if she did, I'd be like, "No, no, no. I'm too much in a bad mood right now, and this hurts, and I need you to attend." No, because I know the consequences, or I am greater able to gauge the consequences. A 7-year-old, we all understand, cannot gauge those consequences. They might say, they might even actually say, "Mom, film this. I'm injured. This will be good for YouTube." Do they really understand? Everyone can agree they don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. And so that goes to this has been the most interesting conversation about this all. And you've given me, again, every time I talk to you, Dr. Kirk, it's like light bulb explosion truth bombs, and I love it. But as a person in Canada, I can do what I can do here. We're going to do the petition and all the stuff. You do all the things you do, right? The surface level shit that doesn't actually do anything. But it shows that people are concerned, and that's great. And I don't want to diminish that. But as someone in the US who lives there, when it comes to laws like Coogan laws and these child actor laws, what is really a solution here? Is it to just get loud enough, be provocative enough that it causes, because people are coming after me for my methods, and maybe for right reasons, because I tear these people to shreds on my channel, and I don't tear anybody else to shreds, just the people who deserve it, as far as I'm concerned. But do the methods need to be loud? But so, Dr. Kirk, in your country, and it's similar to my country, but what can we do to lobby YouTube to do the things, like, as people who don't have the ability to have these corporations? Like, what can we do? What would you suggest?
Yeah, well, as with, when you look at history of our country and regulations around this sort of thing, whenever you have a ton of money that is to be made from the exploitation of someone, or a group of people, we've literally had a civil war over the exploitation of black people in my country. Literally, people had to die for this to change. And there are other things like this that have been throughout history. And so when there's a ton of money, how do you combat that? Because all that money is there to influence politicians, is there to throw their weight around. And the people on the other side, such as yourself, that are lobbying for protections, where's the money in that? There's not any money in it. And so usually what ends up happening, and I'm not a historian, but just as an observer of history, usually, as you said earlier, there needs to be a sensational case where something horrible happens. And then the general population wakes up to it, and then the general population creates so much political pressure that the politicians will start listening. So in order to combat corporations and money, you need to have millions upon millions of people in outrage about something. Right now, we don't have it. I am on YouTube every day. That's my primary entertainment thing. I just go on YouTube and watch clips of all sorts of things. I'm currently, as a guitarist, you might be interested in this. I currently watch this guy repair. He's a Canadian, actually, and he repairs guitars. That's all he does, and I just love watching him repair guitars. So but I've never seen any of these videos. I've never even, I didn't even know this thing existed, and I still haven't seen any of these videos of the family vloggers that you're talking about. My point is that I'm guessing that this is a very niche thing that most people just don't even know about, and if it was made known to everyone, most people would say, there's something off about that, right? So I guess so. There's two things that people can do that, and this is not a therapist talking. This is just a citizen. One is to try to raise awareness, obviously. The other, and by raising awareness, you're trying to get politicians to do something. That's what you're trying to do. You're not. I think a lot of effort goes into trying to get people to take down their channels. That's not going to work. You're not going to get people to give up their channels. Clearly, that doesn't work. So you're trying to influence politicians. The second thing is, unfortunately, when something bad happens, because it likely will, then you want to get behind it and raise awareness about that and how it's connected to this broader industry. So
you almost have to exploit that in order for the overall win. And so again, if that ever does happen, I swear to God, I hope it never does. I really do. But if it ever does, of course, I'm going to cover that. But then I'm going to be accused of being provocative and covering that for money and blah, blah, blah. But you just said there's necessary evils in order to achieve.
The third thing I'll say is clinicians out there, scientists, add this to your dissertation list. Start research, and I'm guessing people are, but we need more data. I couldn't find any data on the outcomes of these kinds of things. It might be out there, but it definitely isn't an overwhelming sense of data. And so we need researchers to start measuring outcomes of children who emerge from these kinds of content.
And as a person in this field, to a regular person who doesn't know, how do we as a people who are following this channel reach out to these people to say, hey, look, this is a really interesting topic. Do we reach out to universities? How do we target the people that can create the research and say, this is interesting, even for, from a psychological perspective, you might love this idea for your own, because they love people who do this for a living, who tear down data analytics and all that stuff and figure out why something is. They do it because they love it. A lot of them don't make a ton of money on it. Some of them might. But how do we target them to say, could you take a look at this?
Well, one thing is what you're doing, which is to make the critique of it entertaining enough that people end up clicking on it. People click on your channel because they like to watch you get angry at it or something.
Yeah,
I don't know
what exactly what it is.
and you make it entertaining enough that it raises awareness. You're not just dryly talking about it. You're trying to say, hey, people, pay attention. And so that's one thing you can do. But obviously, yeah, you could. I mean, there's no hotline for universities, but a lot of people know graduate students in their family, or they know of people, and you can just say, hey. So most graduate students in psychology have a dissertation, which is their big research project that they have to do before they graduate, and graduate students love areas that are emerging because there's not a lot of research in it. Your dissertation has to be unique. You can't do a research project that has already been done, and so these emerging areas are typical areas where graduate students like to go to. And so if you alert them, they might be like, ooh, an emerging area. And the attraction of my dissertation could be like the first of its kind and could be like this seminal research project that could end up working its way into courts and stuff. And I could get on TV and YouTube to talk, I'll be an expert on this. It's very attractive. So if you know a graduate student or even a professor, just alert them because maybe they would appreciate that.
And that's a brilliant idea. I mean, geez. Yes. Okay. So again, just complaining. A lot of people say, well, you're just complaining and what are you doing to help? And they'll call me out on it. And so I'm like, what are you doing? But that's an argument. But yes, so that's exactly what we're going to do. And I've already made videos towards bigger YouTubers like Philip DeFranco and PewDiePie. And I've targeted Ted Cruz and I've targeted Joe Rogan, and I'll continue to do those. And people call me out and make fun of me for doing those things. But at least I'm doing something, and I will continue to do the thing that I'm talking about. And just having conversations like this, even though it's not, scathing and I'm not shouting vitriol and swearing and spit coming out of my mouth and all that stuff, what we had here, this conversation today, should be another benchmark in the step towards understanding how bad this could be for the kids. Because again, this came down to the main question. Kids can't consent. And when a family vlogger like Jess Fam comes out in an Instagram post and says, my kids consent to this, and so does Kendall R. But we all know that that's... can't say definitively that that's true, but especially kids who are under the age of let's say 13 to be fair.
Right. Essentially what they're claiming, not only is their kid providing consent, which we could believe, but they're saying they will not regret having said this in 20 years from now. And I don't think anyone could confidently say that.
Err on the side of caution, just in case they would, right? And so that's where adults land in this conversation. Man, whew. Dr. Kirk, can I bring you on again when we, because I'm diving deep into this, and it's going to be another conversation as I uncover different ideas about, obviously consent's been covered, but there's going to be some other things I want to talk to you about. Is this, I'd love to have you on again. People love you. So you're you're people, I didn't even knew that we've had interviews before. Like, you should get this guy. His name is Dr. Kirk. He's super handsome and he's awesome. And I'm like, yeah, I already know. We're ride or dies. So Dr. Kirk, I want to thank you so much for your time, and so valuable to me and to people who are listening. Make sure you head over to his channel and subscribe. I'll leave it in a link below. Head over to his podcast, Psychology in Seattle. Amazing podcast. We've got at least 3 or 4 that we've done together. Something like that. Yeah, we've done a lot.
Yeah, and I want to thank you and all your viewers for being at the chevron of this movement. It's important to raise awareness for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for your time. And whew, this one's going to be, I have shivers because of the data that you unloaded, and the truth bombs are just going to, it makes me feel good sometimes. And maybe this is, I don't know, maybe this is selfish, but it makes me feel good that I'm right? And that I'm not just blowing smoke up people's ass and I'm just making up shit all along, and that my gut is right on this. And that when I bring professionals on who do this for a living, I love that it serves the message. That's what I love. And thank you for that.
Sure.
All right. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Okay.
So there you go. Big interview with Dr. Kirk. Probably one of the best I've ever had. I always get a massive amount of confidence after talking to him, not just because he's, propping up what I'm saying. It's just because, it's because I trusted my gut, and he confirmed those things that I talk about. Conversing with Dr. Kirk is probably one of the biggest privileges of being on this platform, because I get to talk. It's almost like a therapy session with him. Listen to how he listens. Watch how he listens to you, considers, and then talks. He allows you to put it out there, which is why I do this channel, basically. Because I feel like sometimes I've lost touch of the reason why I've done this. And it's not just about, the whole family vlogging expose stuff. It's really not. It's about that this is therapeutic for me too. When I get to come on here and talk to you about the things that I'm passionate about, that's so therapeutic. And I gotta keep remembering that that's a part of this too. And so that's why I'm not always just gonna cover family vlogging stuff, but bring everything. I'm just gonna start talking about everything. I don't want to just focus on one thing so people don't think I'm a crazy person, but I want to continue to talk about all the things that are important to me as a dad and as a husband and as a YouTuber and a commentator and all the things out in the world. And I think that's one thing I'm missing. I didn't want to just continue to just be a driving hammer, but doing the really cool stuff that everybody wants to talk about. And I think I have a lot of things to say. A lot of them are always right, and I'm going to correct myself as I go and try not to make stupid giant mistakes. But I'm definitely learning as I go on this platform. And I appreciate the people who give me criticisms that are, loving criticisms, not like, you're a complete and utter douchebag asshole and you kill people, and all this stuff. There's a difference. And this world we live in with the anxiety and all that stuff, generalized anxiety disorder, I'm going to do an episode soon on the generalized anxiety disorder, what that means. I might actually bring on Dr. Kirk to talk about that, because a lot of people struggle with that and nobody's really gotten any help with that. Right? You have it. Maybe you've gotten some medicine, you talk to a doctor, but have you really actually sat down and talked about what it means and how it works? I might even bring on a naturopath, because I did not believe in naturopathic doctors until this naturopathic doctor gave me like a microdose of arsenic, and it literally took my anxiety away. It was amazing. So I don't know. We'll see. But please understand that I am here not to deplatform anybody. And I used to say, take them all down. But now I'm here. I have to correct it. I have to stay straight on this channel. I have to be careful with what I say in this channel if I want to stay on YouTube, which I don't think I will be. I think I'm kind of too far gone at this point. But I definitely want to reiterate that I'm not here to just deplatform and take anybody down or start apocalypses or anything like that. I'm actually just here to expose what's going on, to keep the conversation going. And Dr. Kirk said that's one of the most important things about this movement, quote unquote. He said that's important. And so when people are like, what's he doing? Just talking about it, not doing anything. Actually, that's doing something. There are family vloggers out there that have decided to take their kids off because of what I said. And I don't know how else to take that. So that's working. So we're bringing the conversation to the forefront here, and that is part of this whole process. So when someone tells you, he's not doing anything, he's just talking about it, well, that's not true. And that's from a person who's educated, who said that's true. It's very important. And I do have other plans. Obviously, we talked about the 3-step plan. One of the plans is going to be targeting YouTube and saying, hey, we'd love to open up a conversation with YouTube about how we can do this properly. and not starting a big giant fight with YouTube, but just saying, hey, look, can we speak to some of your uppers about what's going on here? Can you understand what's in it? They know, but we have to bring it to their attention, and we have to make a lot of people understand why we think this is important for YouTube to demonetize anything with kids who cannot fully consent without protections in place like the Coogan law. And so going forward with that might mean some protest in the future. It might mean that type of thing. So we can exercise those rights without damaging any other creator on here by doing some kind of adpocalypse, which I don't want to do. So yeah, a lot of things are changing, and I'm shifting as I go, and I'm learning as I go, and I've always been that way. And so, you know what? Take it or leave it. If you leave it, I won't blame you. But if you take it, thanks for joining me on this platform and doing these things with me, because it's not just me. It is you who elevate this. And so one way you can do that is by heading over to Instagram and follow me there, and make sure that you share these videos with the people who need to have these videos shared with. And you are incredible. You are valuable. It is coming up to Christmas. I hope all your Christmas shopping is finished. Hope you can relax, wrap some presents, drink some wine, do whatever you need to do to just take some self-care and some time for you. Protect those around you. And man, you look really nice today. Like, I just feel like I need to hug you all. You're incredible. So please, know your worth and your value. Please, please, please. I know I say that every day, and I think I should, and I need to not stop ever forgetting to say that. Know your worth and your value. Even if it's coming onto a platform like this and helping spread the word about taking down exploitation of children. That's a huge deal. I don't know if you know that. That's a big ass deal. So thank you so much for being who you are, and for being here with me, and for trusting me enough to listen to me enough. And right, I do take this very seriously. It's not something I'm just willy-nilly like, I do take it seriously. And I don't think my platform here is here for long, and I will do what I can with it while I have it. So thank you so much. I'm humbled by you all. And yeah, it's been quite the week and a half off of YouTube where I couldn't upload. It makes you think about a lot of things. It really does. It really does. So yeah, awesome. Let's go.